Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be talking about the impact of recent world events to identity managers and practical steps you can take. My name is Gundotra. I'm the CEO and technical founder of ENow Software. Before starting my company, I spent 20 years consulting in the exchange and AD space. I'm super excited to introduce our guest speaker, who's a close friend of mine and a longtime client, John O'Neill Sr. John, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Jay. Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here as always.
Yeah, John and I, we go way back. He is a CIO of a global manufacturing company. He's worked in the identity space for over 22 years since AD was formed and founded, created. Can't believe, John, you and I have been in this space that long. He's been an MVP for 4 years, specializing in cloud data center management and Azure. And he's also an international IT author and speaker. You may have seen him at the Tech Mentor events, a lot of other events, a lot of other webinars. John, what are you seeing when you look at world events? How's that impacting? I mean, certainly we're living in fascinating times, but now there's a direct correlation to how it's affecting people that have to support identity, support Active Directory. What's your perspective on that topic?
Well, it's absolutely unprecedented is the right word. We've transitioned from, our initial thoughts about cybersecurity and early on when we just had floppy disk based type viruses to malware, which was typically designed and then evolved into ransomware that was designed to get money from someone or espionage, steal some competitive information. And now we're in an era of cyber warfare. And to just show the real impact of this, I often think of the story of Lincoln College, a college that was founded in the 1800s, 1865, I think. And in December of 2021, they were hit by a cyber attack and it kept them out of their systems for a number of months. And by the time they got in, the losses that they incurred were so great that in May of 2022, they closed up shop. So this college that survived the Spanish flu pandemic, 2 world wars, was taken out of existence by a single cyber incident. So that's just such a relevant indicator of why we're in these unprecedented times and what it means. And because of this, we now have concerns that we've never really had in IT before. Are we able to get proper levels of cyber insurance? Are we able to keep the premiums low? Are they going to be there when we need them to help us on our, both from a standpoint of recovery and loss of business? Because, a lot of people don't realize this, but now they don't just show up with a checkbook and say, oh, that's what it cost you, here you go. They come in and do a forensic analysis to make sure that your environment was secured the way you said it was when you got the policy or the standards that they put. A big thing that we're seeing is that identity is still one of the major attack vectors that these incidents come through, right? Because a credential and your identity management is principal to making sure that the right things have access to the right resources at the right time, right? Principles of least privilege and zero trust, those kind of things. And unfortunately, or fortunately, for a long time, AD, we kind of set it up and then we forgot it, right? It was like that old infomercial, set it and forget it. But in the current environment, that doesn't work anymore. We need to be monitoring and caring and feeding for our Active Directory, our identity management solution. And Jay, I've used the ENow tool solution for a long time, and it's been great. My teams really rely on it to help us ensure that our AD environment is working the way it's supposed to. So if you don't mind, why don't you show everybody around and I'll jump in with some comments on how we happen to use it.
No, that's great, John. I think in addition to the stories that you've pointed out, that we've heard more and more stories like that are similar. Unfortunately, they're becoming too common. And then when you factor in the rate of change, now that we're on the Office 365 train, in the old days, we would wait to Service Pack 1, deploy technology. Now features are coming at us left and right. So there's a lot more SaaS providers, a lot more applications connecting to our tenants. So I do agree the problem's gotten a lot bigger. Thank you for, number one, being a client and just providing so much great feedback to our tool. For those of you that don't know who ENow Software is, I mentioned to you that I was a consultant. I actually started ENow as a consulting company. And while we were consulting with customers, we started building tools for our own consultants to use. And then we accidentally fell into the software space. The tools were never designed to really be used wide scale. But as we got requests for it, we then transformed into a software company. And really where it all started was we wanted more visibility. And when you look at monitoring products, a lot of times they're overly complex. They have too many false positives, and it's hard to get meaningful information. So in particular with Active Directory, with something that doesn't really go down, how do you know if things are functioning? How do you know if name resolution, replication, things that still are servicing the users? But if you have a large infrastructure, some of our clients have 80, 90 domain controllers worldwide. They have Azure AD Connect, they have ADFS. It gets complex really quick. So what we decided to do was create a visual approach to monitoring. So as you can see here on my screen, we have a dashboard that a lot of companies put up in their network operations center or wherever the AD administrators may sit. We use a traffic light system. Green is good, yellow is a warning state, red is bad. The idea behind our software is that depending upon what technology that you're using, what we would like to do is be able to make it easy for you to pinpoint where there is an issue so you can quickly address it. So if you look here at my screen, you'll notice that for the one Exchange server I have up here, the layout is slightly different than it is for AD. But if you look at our Office 365 or Azure AD Connect product, the layout's going to be different. Well, why is that? Well, the reason for that is we want to be able to make it easy for you to answer those questions. What is broken? How do I fix it? Very quickly. So we lay out the dashboard in a way that a person who is familiar with that technology will be able to quickly pinpoint the answers to those questions. So if you look here at my domain controllers on the screen, you can see here that I have two indicator lights going off. When I drill down to the first DC and go into the services tab, I can quickly see that the DFS replication service has stopped. When I go over to DC2, I can drill down into the replication tab, drill down into DFS. What we're doing here is we're dropping a file into the folder structure, and then we're monitoring, does it go around to all the DCs? And you can quickly see here that we're pinpointing that DC1 is the problem. Now, if you have an infrastructure of 90 servers, you can quickly see how this can isolate, boom, DFS is not working. Now, as far as the impact of DFS, go ahead, John. I know this is a story that's near and dear to your heart.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting, but a lot of people don't give DFS the credit that's due for how important it is to your user experience and your security. Sysvol and NetLogin, that's all replicated using DFSR in modern implementations. And therefore, your group policies, your login scripts, all that kind of stuff is not getting around when DFS is broken. So you really want to be sure that you have this working and doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Thank you, John. If you go back 2 screens, you can see there's another light going off with replication. Compass goes out and monitors replication across your infrastructure. Drilling down a little bit deeper, you can see here again, DC1 is the culprit, but it hasn't synced in almost 22 hours.
Jay, this is huge. And a lot of people go, why is it a big deal? I have multiple domain controllers, right? I have redundancy. Well, let's look at it from a security perspective. You have someone you've just let go from the organization, and they're not real happy about that. So you need to make sure that they don't have access to log in and delete files or send an email to the entire company with a whole diatribe or any of that kind of stuff. So you go ahead and you disable them in Active Directory, and you're like, okay, well, things are going on. Well, we've got replication broken now. So there's a domain controller out there that, sure, if replication's only broken in between it and one other domain controller, it may get the changes through another domain controller. But what happens in that scenario where it's broken from all other connectivity and it's on an island now? And maybe that's the particular domain controller that you've pointed your VPN concentrator to, because a lot of those devices, you have to point them to a specific domain controller or a global catalog. Well, that means that threat, that unhappy user could still authenticate, get into your VPN controller, and possibly do some of that damage you didn't want them to do. So knowing when replication is broken and seeing it in a red state, so you kind of drop everything and react, is huge.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge, is when you don't think about Active Directory going down, but it's when these small things, seemingly small things, happen, and the need to understand it quickly so you can address it is really what Compass is trying to solve. Is we're trying to take the complex and really make it simple for you. A couple other things that we do in here. We don't have time to go through the entire product, but there's some other components here. For example, we're monitoring the LSAS service. We've seen situations where the LSAS service is actually up, but it's not actually functioning. And of course, if LSAS is not functioning, people can't log in. So we go into depth there to make sure that it's functioning. We also spent a lot of time developing features around Ldap, because Ldap is another area that can tax your domain controllers. John, you had some stories about Ldap.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't think about Ldap as much as they used to, because they're used to these much more integrated ties between their line of business applications and such. But what if you have legacy line of business applications? Most of us do. We have some application that we've been using for quite a long time. It's relied upon by our users. Maybe it's our finance app, maybe it's our manufacturing application, whatever it may be. Well, a lot of those systems use Ldap integration to perform authentication against your Active Directory. So if Ldap doesn't work, then those authentication events fail and your users can't get into those important line of business apps.
Absolutely. There's some other components that we monitor that are in the AD or identity realm. We monitor Azure AD Connect. Again, Azure AD Connect is not one of those things that, if it goes down immediately, people are going to scream, but you want your directory to be in sync. And so what we do here is we have a synthetic transaction that goes and modifies an attribute on-prem, goes up to Azure, make sure that the actual sync happened. And then we monitor the number of objects that you're syncing. There's a hard-coded limit. So if you're a large enterprise, you don't want to find that out if you're in the middle of a migration. We show you the number of objects synced. If you have to open up a trouble ticket and support ticket with Microsoft, we give you all the information that you need to handle that. And then we show you the recent examples of what's taken place in terms of transactions. For ADFS, we do some really cool things. We have a synthetic transaction for ADFS where we're actually passing a SAML token, doing full authentication. When you couple this with our remote probes, we give you the ability to do this from branch office locations. It really gives you the ability to see where is the issue. Is it on your network? Is there a problem on the Microsoft side? Again, just giving you visibility. The other component of the application is on our reporting side. We have a reporting solution where you can customize reports, customize dashboards, have reports mailed to you. But really where this comes in handy is when you get a compliance request. If you've ever had to deal with compliance in terms of SOX, the GLBA, you get a request, hey, you need to go prove. Similar to your stories, John, earlier about the insurance claims. Do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Absolutely, because this is a great opportunity for what I call a pro tip to share with everyone. So in the interesting times that we're living in, getting and keeping that cyber insurance is, as I mentioned, critical, more critical than ever, keeping those premiums low and the coverage is high and all that. Well, what we found beginning in 2021 and now in 2022 is that when we proactively take and we use these reports and we go to our insurance broker, our insurance carrier, and we say, hey, these are the tools we're using to keep an eye on our identity management systems and reduce the likelihood of a threat, but also to identify when something's happening, how do we react and how do we react quickly? And Jay, that domain authentication activity report is one of my favorites. So thanks for pulling that up. And what I want to mention to everybody here is that our insurance broker really loved the fact that we were monitoring this report daily. And what we're watching for is an unusual spike in the level of authentication activity. So if we see this all of a sudden shoot up from 42,270 to 500,000, that is a great indicator that there's actually some sort of incident, an attack coming at us right then, and we react right then. And the insurance carrier really loves seeing that.
Yeah, what we have found is that when kind of formalizing and building this product, you have to have monitoring and reporting. They two go hand in hand. The reporting helps you, detect those anomalies. If you're interested in learning more about our solution, please feel free to reach out. We'd love to be able to talk to you. We have sandbox environments where you can play. And this month, we're running a really cool promotion that if you talk to us and you give the sandbox a whirl, you'll have an opportunity to win an Xbox X. Hopefully, we've kind of raised awareness today, John, about some of the issues that are happening. And you guys feel more equipped now to be able to handle these types of scenarios. But please feel free to reach out. John, you have any last quick comments?
But all I'm going to say is that, AD's been out there for 2+ decades, but it is more important than ever to monitor it, care, and feed it. Take care of your identity management systems. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining. But we hope you guys have a great day. Cheers.